Alrighty, so we're in the fourth set of notes for Unit 6, and this time I decided to try something a little bit different. So if you look at our tracker, Part 4 is going to be your first summative for Unit 6. It's going to capture a lot of the ideas you learned in the first three sections and have a few new ideas of its own. So instead of learning a bunch of new stuff, I thought it'd be better to recap everything we've done so far, see how much you already know, and then teach you some tricks that'll make the summative a bit easier for you. So, what we're going to do, instead of me teaching you everything, I want you to try everything here yourself. I want you to try the whole front. Try the whole front yourself and see how far you get. After you try it, I'll go ahead and walk you through everything we do here. And make sure you got all the processes, all the steps, you got everything right. Once we go to the back, you'll learn a few new tricks. So, go ahead and pause. I want you to try everything here, see what you know, and then compare it to my answers in a moment. So pause and come back in a moment. Okay, awesome. So as you might have seen, the front has five major ideas, right? We got identifying functions. So that's stuff we learned before. It's coming back here. We're going to do it more later on. I just want to make sure this is fresh in your mind. Identifying functions. Identifying a slope as positive or negative. You got to tell me what slope is and what the formula is. Then you got to calculate it, make it y equals mx, and then graph it. If you can do all those things, it'll be fantastic, but let's make sure you got it all right. So far this unit has taken us from the very basics of plotting points all the way up to making machines that plot lines for us. They're called functions. You got to know what a function is, so you got to tell me which of these is a function. Well, it's not going to be number 1, because the negative 2 is repeated twice. It's not going to be this graph because it does not pass the vertical line test. I can draw a vertical line that hits the graph at multiple points. However, this middle one, this set, is a function because no x repeats. We got 3, 1, negative 3, 4, negative 2, 30, 1,000. I don't see the same x value twice, so it is a function. Now, we move down to the second one. We got to identify a slope as positive or negative. This first one's here positive. It goes up over time, so it's a positive slope. This middle one here is going to be negative because it goes down over time. Negative. And this last one here is also negative because, again, it goes down over time. Negative again. So you can identify functions, you can identify slope. Now, you got to know what slope is. We're going to call it a rate of change. And you got to know its formula too. You actually have to be able to write it for the summative. So it's going to be y new minus y old over x new minus x old. Got to know that formula and the news and olds. Okay, with all that in mind, we know the formula, we got to apply it. So, we got to get the slope from these 2 points. I'm going to call this one my new point. This is going to be my old point. So, I'm going to do 6 minus 3 minus negative 3 over 5 minus 2. Going to be 9 on top, 3 on the bottom, a slope of 3. In a table, I got to identify 2 points. I'm going to pick these 2. This one's going to be my new. This one's going to be my old. I do 5 minus 1 over 2 minus 0. 4 over 2, or a slope of 2. Lastly, on this graph right here, I'm going to plot 2 points, here and here. This is going to be 1, 0. This is going to be 0, negative 3. I'm going to call this my new point. This is going to be my old point. So I'm going to do 0 minus negative 3 over 1 minus 0. This equals out to 3 over 1, or 3. So 3, 2, 3. You got to know how to apply the slope formula to solve these kinds of questions. Down here at the bottom, we got to know our y equals mx form. So m is our slope. We plug in our slope of negative 3 for m. We got y equals negative 3x, and we've got y equals 1/2 x. We have to also be able to plot it on a graph. So I'm going to start with my negative 3x graph. I plug in an x, so I'm going to start with, let's say, 0. Imagine plugging in a 0 for this x. 0 times negative 3 is also 0. If I plug in a 1, I'll get out a negative 3. If I plug in a negative 2, I'll get out a 6, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and try to plot these points. I have 0, 0. I have 1, negative 3. And I have negative 2, 6. Connect them with a line. And there's my graph. I'm going to call this y equals negative 3x. Same thing here. I plug in 0, I get 0. I plug in 2, I get 1. I plug in negative 4, I get negative 2. I plug in my x, I get out my y. Plug in x, get out y. Plug in x, get out y. So 0, 0, 2, 1, negative 4, negative 2. This second line is going to be my y equals 1/2 x. So that's all these processes. If you're stuck on any of these, of course, ask me. I'll walk you through them. Or go back through your notes, go back through the old videos. You'll be able to find this process somewhere. Once you're confident, you can go to the back, and you'll learn a couple tricks you'll need for the summative. Let's go. Okay, so this is also a little self-directed. You should be able to do everything on the first question here and the second question here on your own. So try and try. These are new ideas, but you should be able to figure it out. Everything we've learned so far builds up to what you're going to see here and here. So give it a shot. After you give it a second, I'll go ahead and walk you through it and make sure you got the right ideas. So pause and give it a shot. Okay, so we're going to follow what these instructions say and start by plotting these points on the graph. I've got negative 6, positive 2, negative 3, positive 2, negative 1, positive 2, 0, 2, and then 5, 2. When I plot them, I get a flat horizontal line, just like this. Okay, weird. All right. Let's also find its slope. So we're going to do new and old. We've got 2 minus 2 over 5 minus 0. It's going to be 0 over 5, or a slope of 0. What's weird about it? Well, it's flat. So this is a slope of 0. It's a flat horizontal line. It's always going to be like this. If you ever see a flat line, it's a slope of 0. If all of its y values are the same, it's a slope of 0. So you see a flat line, that's a slope of 0. All right, that's the whole idea. I want you to try the same thing down here. Make sure you pause, give it a shot, and then I'll walk you through it. Okay, once again, we're going to go ahead and plot our points. So I have negative 2, negative 5. I've got negative 2, 3. I've got negative 2, 0, negative 2, negative 1. I've got negative 2, 4. This is going to be a vertical line. Okay, weird. Let's go ahead and calculate the slope. I'm going to get my old point, my new point, and then I'm going to go ahead and calculate the formula. So that's going to be negative 1 minus 0 over negative 2 minus negative 2. That's going to be negative 1 over 0, or if you try it in a calculator, it's going to be undefined. That's what this slope is called. It's an undefined slope. That means it's a vertical line up and down. So it's always going to be like this. If you see a vertical line, it's going to be an undefined slope. If all of its x values are the same, like we saw here, all of its x values are the same, it's an undefined slope. So undefined slopes have a special way to write their equation. Instead of y equals, we're going to call it x equals. And our x is going to be the x values. So in our case, it's going to be x equals negative 2. And that's the whole idea. You got to be able to identify a slope of 0 and an undefined slope. This idea of an x equals line will come up later, but I want to make sure you've seen it. So this is an x equals negative 2 because it crosses negative 2 on the x-axis. Okay, let's go to the bottom. All right, so to wrap this up, we're going to talk briefly about rise over run. Rise over run is a great trick to figure out the slope of a line quickly. So it's a strategy. You'll be able to use it to identify the slope faster than the slope formula, but it's fundamentally doing the same idea. So we have 4 steps. First, we want to plot 2 points on our line. Okay, so I'm going to plot a point here. Let's plot another point here. So we're going to count the spaces up. Count the spaces up and down between the 2 points. So I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3. I went up, so it's going to be positive. This is going to be a positive 3. If I went down, down is going to be a negative. Up is positive. Once you count up, you're going to count right. So I'm going to count 1 to the right. Okay? So I've counted spaces up and down. I've counted right. I'm going to turn those numbers into a fraction. And it's rise over run. So I'm going to put my rise 3 over my run of 1. So this is going to be my slope of 3. So plot 2 points, count up, count over. That's my rise, that's my run, so I do 3 over 1. Okay, so go ahead and try it as you're checking understanding today. If you get good at rise over run, this will save you a lot of time on the summative. So try it out. Let me know if you have any questions or if you'd like me to show it to you again. And as always, thank you very much, and I'll see you in class.